There is a version of the INFJ the world will never meet. A private interior realm where thoughts move with surgical precision. Emotions speak in layers, and intuition weaves together truths long before reality confirms them. This is the life they live behind the calm expression, behind the listening posture, behind the softness everyone assumes they understand. But no one truly does. Not fully. Because the INFJ's real world isn't external, it's an ongoing dialogue between intuition, meaning, memory, and emotional intelligence so intricate that even they struggle to explain it. What others see is only the echo, never the source. People try to decode them through behavior, but behavior is the least accurate part of an INFJ. Their silence has chapters. Their eyes have conclusions. Their empathy has boundaries and calculations no one notices. They love privately, detach quietly, and transform invisibly. And because they reveal only what someone has earned the right to see, the world keeps misinterpreting their depth as mystery, their discernment as distance, and their insight as something accidental. But nothing an INFJ perceives is accidental. Nothing. If you're still here, ask yourself this. What do you think the world misunderstands most about INFJ? Drop one word in the comments. The word that captures what people never truly see. And make sure you subscribe. You're only touching the surface of what comes next. They live in a private inner world far more complex than anything they express outwardly. Most people only ever meet the surface of an INFJ, the polite calm, the steady presence, the thoughtful pauses that make them seem composed even when the world around them shakes. But behind that exterior exists an inner world that almost no one gets to enter. It is a place where thoughts unfold in layers, where emotions connect to meaning, and where intuition works like a quiet engine, gathering signals others never notice. While others speak to be understood, the INFJ listens to understand. And that internal processing creates a landscape of insight, imagination, and silent conclusions that remain hidden from the outside world. Their mind does not simply observe reality, it interprets it, rearranges it, and extracts truths that would overwhelm most people if spoken aloud. This is why INFJ so often appear mysterious. Not because they are trying to be, but because their internal world is simply too rich, too fast, and too multidimensional to translate fully into words. Inside that inner world, every experience reverberates differently. A conversation is not just a conversation. It is an exchange of energy, intention, tone, and unspoken meaning. A relationship is not just companionship. It is a complex emotional equation. Who someone is, who they are becoming, and what invisible patterns shape their behavior. Even small moments, like a glance or a shift in the atmosphere of a room, trigger intuitive calculations that run silently in the background. The INFJ tracks these nuances automatically, often without even realizing how much information they are processing. And because their insights come from deep internal synthesis rather than surface logic, they struggle to explain them without sounding too intense or too abstract. So they don't. They keep it inside. They protect it. They choose silence because their internal truth feels too delicate to expose to a world that misunderstands depth as complexity and sensitivity as fragility. Yet this hidden world is also their greatest source of strength. It is where they refine their sense of purpose, where they reconcile their contradictions, and where they build the quiet resilience that allows them to move through life with calm intensity. People often underestimate them because they do not see this unseen architecture of thought, the layers of perception, memory, intuition, and emotional intelligence working all at once. But the INFJ does not need to be understood for that world to be real. It is the place that shapes their compassion, their discernment, and their ability to see the truth long before anyone else even notices a shift. It is the part of them that no one can imitate, infiltrate, or fully comprehend, and the part that makes them unforgettable. They feel emotions in layers, processing meaning, context, and depth others never even detect. For most people, an emotion is a single experience, a spike of sadness, a wave of anger, a moment of joy. But for an INFJ, emotions arrive like multi-dimensional currents, each carrying context, memory, symbolism, and unspoken truth. They don't simply feel something, they feel into it. They sense the origin, the hidden trigger, the meaning behind the moment, and the wider emotional landscape it belongs to. When someone speaks to them, the INFJ doesn't just hear the words, they absorb the tone beneath the words, the tension in the pauses, the emotional residue left in the spaces that most people overlook. This layered awareness makes their emotional world rich and profound, but also heavy. It opens portals into understanding that few ever reach, yet it also demands a level of internal processing that happens constantly and quietly. The INFJ doesn't choose to go deep. They exist deep. These emotional layers form a kind of inner map, connecting present experiences to past lessons and future possibilities. A single disappointed tone from someone they care about can activate a chain of insights. What this moment says about the relationship, what patterns it reflects, where the dynamic might be heading, and what unresolved emotional truths are hiding underneath. While others experience an emotion and let it pass, the INFJ dissects it intuitively, feeling not only the emotion itself, but its echoes. They sense the intent behind the feeling, the wounds that shaped it, and the narratives silently influencing the person expressing it. This emotional intelligence is not sentimental softness. It's a form of psychological navigation that lets them understand people with startling accuracy. But it also means they feel complexity before others even realize something is happening. To the outside world, this can seem like overthinking. To the INFJ, it is simply how their mind and heart work, intertwined, analytical, and perceptive beyond what most can comprehend. In many ways, this multi-layered emotional processing is both a gift and a burden. It enables INFJ to love deeply, understand intuitively, and anticipate emotional shifts long before they unfold. But it also places them in a constant state of awareness, carrying truths that others are not ready to hear, and sensing emotional realities people cannot articulate. These layers of feeling shape their decisions, their boundaries, their silences, and their compassion. And while people may mistake their depth for sensitivity or their introspection for distance, the truth is far more intricate. INFJ live in a world where every emotion is a story, every reaction is a signal, and every connection is an unfolding constellation of meaning. Understanding this part of them fully is nearly impossible because most people do not feel the world in layers, they feel it in flashes. The INFJ feels the entire spectrum. They read people effortlessly, but reveal almost nothing about themselves in return. For an INFJ, understanding others is almost instinctive, a quiet, seamless process that happens beneath the surface of every interaction. They notice what people emphasize and what they avoid, the mismatch between tone and intent, the small hesitations that betray hidden fears, and the flashes of emotion that slip through before someone can regain composure. They interpret microsignals the way others interpret words. This gives them an uncanny, almost unsettling accuracy in reading people's motives, vulnerabilities, desires, and emotional wounds. But while they absorb these layers of truth from everyone around them, they guard their own inner world like a locked cathedral. People walk away feeling understood, exposed, or comforted, yet they realize, often too late, that they learned nothing real about the INFJ in return. The paradox is that INFJ aren't hiding themselves to be mysterious or superior. It's simply that their internal life feels too intricate to be reduced to casual conversation. They know how easy it is for others to misinterpret what is delicate, personal, or complex. They've experienced the sting of being misunderstood so many times that silence becomes a shield and selective revelation becomes survival. While others share pieces of themselves freely, the INFJ reveals their truth only when trust is undeniable, when the listener has proven they can hold depth without distorting it. Until then, the INFJ becomes a mirror, reflecting, understanding, guiding, but never exposing the private architecture of their thoughts and emotions. People often mistake this for aloofness or secrecy, but it is neither. It is discernment. This dynamic creates a strange emotional gravity around them. People feel drawn in because the INFJ perceives them so clearly. It feels rare, intimate, and almost sacred to be seen that deeply. But as they lean closer, they realize the INFJ remains unreadable, not out of manipulation, but because their soul does not open easily. This contrast makes the INFJ feel both safe and unreachable, comforting yet enigmatic. The more someone tries to understand them, the more they realize how little access they've actually been granted. And that is the secret life of the INFJ. They can map the emotional landscape of others with precision, while keeping their own terrain hidden beneath layers of quiet strength and unspoken depth. They love and attach quietly, in ways others rarely understand until much later. INFJ attachment is never loud, impulsive, or attention-seeking. It unfolds the way dawn replaces night, subtly, gradually, almost imperceptibly, until suddenly it's everywhere. When an INFJ begins to care for someone, it doesn't show up in dramatic declarations or constant reminders. It shows up in observation, in remembering the smallest details, in understanding needs the other person never voiced, and in offering comfort at precisely the moment it's needed. Their love is not a performance, it is a presence. They attach through depth, not frequency, through meaning, not routine, through the quiet certainty of recognizing a soul that feels familiar. Others often underestimate this depth because it does not announce itself, but when the INFJ chooses someone, the connection is profound long before anyone else realizes it. Yet this quiet attachment is not born from shyness or hesitation. It is rooted in the INFJ's instinct to protect both themselves and the bond they are forming. They know love is fragile in its early stages, easily distorted by misunderstanding or imbalance. So they approach it with care, studying the emotional landscape before offering pieces of their heart. They test the sincerity of someone's intentions through subtle cues, observing consistency, emotional honesty, and the capacity for depth. The INFJ wants to ensure that the person they choose can hold the weight of the connection, not exploit it. Because of this, their affection often goes unnoticed until it has already grown roots. By the time the other person becomes aware of the INFJ's attachment, the INFJ has already woven them into their inner world, silently, meaningfully, irrevocably. The irony is that people often recognize the magnitude of an INFJ's love only after they experience its absence. Because INFJ love quietly, they also detach quietly, and when they do, the contrast is unmistakable. The sudden silence, the absence of intuitive support, the missing emotional warmth makes people realize what they once had. This delayed awareness is the hallmark of an INFJ connection. It is most clearly understood in hindsight. Their love is not loud, but it is enduring. Not dramatic, but transformative. Not easily recognized, but impossible to forget. And by the time someone grasps how deeply the INFJ cared, the INFJ has already rewritten the emotional script of their life, softly, invisibly, powerfully. They detach silently, leaving people confused because they never announce the shift. When an INFJ begins to detach, there is no warning, no explosive argument, no dramatic declaration that something has changed. Instead, the shift happens the way a tide pulls back from the shore, quietly, naturally, almost invisibly at first. They stop offering emotional support without mentioning why. Their messages become shorter, but not cold. Their presence becomes lighter, but not hostile. And because INFJ are masters of maintaining external harmony, even when their internal world is transforming, most people don't notice the withdrawal until it's already complete. What confuses others is the softness of the exit. The INFJ still smiles, still listens, still behaves with kindness. But the cord that once connected them has been severed in a place the other person cannot see. By the time someone realizes the INFJ has emotionally checked out, the INFJ is already long gone in spirit. What makes this silent detachment so disorienting is the INFJ's ability to remain outwardly stable while internally performing a clean emotional cut. They don't blame, they don't guilt trip, they don't seek validation for their decision. The detachment is an act of self-preservation, not punishment. They retreat into their inner world, replaying countless moments, reanalyzing behaviors, and ultimately concluding that the bond is no longer safe, reciprocal, or aligned with who they are becoming. To the outside observer, nothing appears disrupted, but within the INFJ, an irreversible decision has already been made. Their mind shifts first, then their heart, and finally their behavior. This emotional sequence is so controlled, so introspective, that it feels sudden only to those who never saw the quiet accumulation of unspoken wounds. And when the INFJ finally steps back completely, the silence they leave behind becomes louder than any confrontation could have been. People feel the emptiness immediately, the missing emotional insight, the absence of intuitive understanding, the disappearance of the INFJ's steady presence. It creates confusion because most people expect conflict when something ends, not calm. But INFJ do not exit to prove a point, they exit to reclaim their peace. Their silence isn't avoidance, it is clarity. It is resolution. And it forces others to face a truth they never anticipated. The INFJ's love was deep, but their departure is absolute. They carry emotional wisdom beyond their years, shaped by experiences no one knows about. INFJ move through the world with a kind of quiet knowing that often confuses people. They appear calm, grounded, and perceptive in ways that feel disproportionate to their age. What most don't realize is that their emotional wisdom wasn't learned from books, lectures, or advice. It was forged in silence, through experiences they almost never speak about. Much of what shaped them happened internally, the childhood moments when they felt too much, too early, the times they saw pain in others before they understood their own, the invisible role they played as emotional anchors in environments that demanded more from them than they could articulate. This depth becomes a foundation long before they truly recognize it. To others, the INFJ seems naturally insightful, but the truth is far more complex. Their wisdom is a private archive of emotions they processed alone, long before they had the language to name them. This hidden history gives INFJ the ability to understand situations and people with startling clarity. They catch inconsistencies, sense patterns, and interpret emotional undercurrents with an accuracy that feels intuitive but is really the result of years spent observing instead of speaking. INFJ rarely volunteer the stories that built this inner architecture. They simply carry the lessons forward, letting their experiences mature into discernment. Their emotional intelligence is not theoretical, it is lived. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment of being the strong one in a room full of chaotic energy taught them something about human nature. These lessons don't fade, they crystallize. And because INFJ learn deeply rather than frequently, each experience becomes a lens through which they see the world with increasing sharpness. To others, this looks like natural wisdom. To the INFJ, it feels like quiet survival. What confuses people is the gap between the INFJ's external calm and the internal history that created it. They never brag about what they've overcome. They don't recount the difficulties that shaped their perception. Instead, they show the outcome, the emotional composure, the empathy tempered with discernment, the ability to guide others without revealing their own scars. Their wisdom is subtle but unmistakable. It shows up in the advice they give, the boundaries they set, the people they avoid, and the situations they navigate with uncanny precision. And because they carry that wisdom privately, people often underestimate what the INFJ has lived through, until they watch them respond to life with a depth that can only come from someone who has already survived more than they ever disclosed. They protect their true self behind a calm exterior, showing it only to the few who earn absolute trust. INFJ move through life wrapped in a quiet composure that most people mistake for simplicity or predictability. What they don't see is that this calmness is a carefully woven shield, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. From an early age, INFJ learn that the world reacts differently to depth. Some people are intimidated by it, others misunderstand it, and many try to take advantage of it. So the INFJ develops an exterior that is gentle, steady, and unreadable, revealing only what is safe to reveal. Inside, however, their true self is vivid, intense, and deeply introspective. Their thoughts are richer than their expressions, their feelings deeper than their responses, and their intentions far more complex than the surface ever suggests. This duality isn't deception, it is self-preservation. They know that not everyone deserves access to their inner world, and they guard it the way others guard their most precious possessions. But this protective instinct doesn't come from mistrust alone. It comes from a lifetime of watching people misinterpret their authenticity or take advantage of their empathy. INFJ learned that showing their true self to the wrong person can drain them emotionally, distort their sense of identity, or invite manipulation disguised as connection. So they developed a code: reveal slowly, observe consistently, and trust only when someone's character aligns with their energy. When the INFJ does open up, it is never impulsive. It comes after patterns are analyzed, motives are quietly tested, and emotional safety is proven over time. To most people, the INFJ remains a mystery, someone warm but distant, kind but private, expressive yet contained. What they don't realize is that the INF is constantly evaluating who can be trusted with the parts of them that cannot be replaced if mishandled. The few who earn that trust experience a version of the INFJ almost no one else ever sees. The INFJ becomes expansive, expressive, deeply affectionate, and emotionally transparent. Their humor surfaces, their spontaneity appears, and their thoughts pour out with a depth that feels almost sacred. Being trusted by an INFJ is not casual. It is a rare invitation into a world built on intuition, loyalty, and truth. And once you've seen that version of them, you understand why they guard it so fiercely. Because it is their essence, their soul, the part of them that does not regenerate if shattered. This is why INFJ appear calm on the outside. Their truest self is something they will never risk unless they are certain it will be safe. In the end, the secret life of an INFJ isn't mysterious because they want to be complicated. It's mysterious because they have spent their entire lives protecting a depth most people never take the time to understand. If you've ever felt like you're living between two worlds, the calm one you show and the storm of meaning you carry inside, then you already know why INFJ move the way they do. Your inner world is your power, not something to shrink, not something to justify, and definitely not something to hand to the wrong person. If this spoke to you, stay with this channel, not just to learn about INFJ, but to finally understand yourself without diluting your truth for anyone. Before you go, answer this in the comments. What's one part of your inner world you've never let anyone see? And if you're watching to the end, type the word depth so I know the real INFJ found this video. Subscribe if you haven't. The next video will take you even deeper.